So welcome to this session. Thank you so much for joining us. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Hopefully not in the middle of the night for anyone. Welcome to this session about the Oxford's MSc in Major Program Management. My name is Magda Brown. I'm the recruitment manager for this program, and you might have seen my name somewhere in the emails already, or I might have spoken to many of you already as well. So lovely to see everyone joining us. This session will be recorded, so don't worry about missing anything. We will send you the recording and we will send you the slides probably next week. So you can just relax and listen to us, hopefully. So I just wanted to introduce Jessica to everyone. Jessica is our new program director. She started a couple of months ago, and I will hand over to her now so she can introduce herself and tell you a little bit more about the program as well.
So hello everybody, and welcome to this webinar around our MSc in Major Program Management. As Magda said, I'm very new to the program myself, although I have already worked at the business school for nearly 8 years now, just on other programs. So I'm really enjoying getting to know the current cohorts that we already have, as well as interviewing those of you who are applying. Hopefully some of those are on the call today. So if I've met you already, welcome again. I've actually had quite a diverse career myself, moving through veterinary research and professional sport, looking at performance, as well as financial services before coming into higher education. I wonder if you could move on to the next slide, Magda. Because as you can see, the cohorts that we have are very diverse as well. We usually take about 60 into the program per year. But this covers, as you can see, sort of across 27 different sectors, 32 nationalities. And you'll note that actually, although you might have seen in our application information that we asked for over 7 years experience, actually the average age of the people who apply for the program is actually much higher than that. One thing that we are still working on is our female participation. We would like to get that higher, and we work every year to try and improve that, but it is improving year on year. So often it's thought of that this program might be about major infrastructure programs only, but it certainly isn't. We have people from all different backgrounds. It could be NGOs, yes, there are some people from infrastructure, but it could be things like digital change as well. And the thing we notice about the participants that come to the program is they are really looking to differentiate themselves in their workplace. And we hope this is the program that could do it for them. They're looking to either elevate their practice or maybe scale up the size of the programs that they already run. Also, it's a real good opportunity to come and reflect on your practice, which is something that we're often far too busy to do in our day-to-day work life. Well, would you mind moving to the next slide, Magda? Thank you. So we're actually undergoing a bit of a redesign at the moment. So some of our panelists that we've got here today haven't actually gone through the program in this structure. So this is sort of a new design for them. But what we've done is we've themed. So we have 8 modules across the 2 years, but we've actually then done sub-themes. So the overarching theme of the program is leadership, because that is the place to which people who come on our program are going. They're moving up the ladder. But then we've grouped some of the modules together. So we start off thinking about, beginning of a program, thinking about the design of the program, mapping it out, scoping it out. Then we move on to the sort of governance section. And then when you get to the end of your programs, we'll be thinking about the impact that these programs make. I wonder if you go to the next slide, please, Magda. So this is just the general information about the program, which I'm sure a lot of you know if you've already had a look at the website. So it is part-time, over 2 years. You come and visit us in person about every 6 weeks to 2 months. And that's 8 modules. which run into the first part of your second year. And then for the last part of your programme, you are required to do a dissertation, but that doesn't require you to come to Oxford for that. You can see there's pre-work expected to be done before you come to your module. Might be some reading, might be watching some videos, as well as your assignments after each of your modules, which could be another 40 hours. Okay, if we could move on to the next slide, please. Thank you. So here's a little bit more about the structure. So as I've mentioned, we have these 8 modules, and we've actually moved to 5 days in Oxford now. So the first day when you come is what we call a cohort day. And this is actually to enhance cohort building. And it could be academic skills, it could be extra industry speakers. So we keep quite a mix in that day, but it all contributes towards your learning around major programs. And then the standard sort of teaching is run from Tuesday to Friday, where you will have classes 9 to 5 every day, plus we have some events in the evening as well. And that teaching, it wouldn't necessarily...
Sorry to interrupt. I think Sarah wants to add something. She raised her hand. Sarah,
oh, yes.
I don't want to interrupt, but it's interesting that you've got 8 modules. I noticed 2 new, and you say 7 summative assessments. So we had 8 assessments. Which module does not have an assessment?
So the change is that rather than having a module assessment pattern, with the groupings I showed you, what happens if you have your first 2 modules now, then you do the assessment, which will be across those 2 modules, but it might be more than one piece, but it is in one assessment. And then the next 2 are together. And again, there's an assessment period after the end of that, which might have multiple tasks, but it's one assessment. And then the research method stands alone. And then the final 3 modules, again, they're grouped together. So the assessment will be after the last 3. So just a slightly different setup.
Thank you.
You have perfectly answered just what I was, or asked just what I was about to go on to describe. So that's great. So that's how the assessment is now going to be structured, with this grouping around you, where you could see that we did these sort of sub themes that we showed you earlier. And you can see here from the module titles, there hasn't been a massive change in what we're actually teaching, but we have introduced a couple of new modules, or they've been slightly renamed. So the Programme Management Impact and Futures are our newest modules, which are looking at sort of the impact looks at sort of global impact of the different programs, and Futures is all about thinking about, you know, what are going to be the disruptions in the future that perhaps we haven't, well, we can't even imagine at this point. So that's going to be quite an exciting module, and we'll be bringing in sort of the latest research and thinking around that. Okay, and moving on to the next slide. Oh, okay.
Yeah, so you're done.
We're now over to Magda.
Thank you so much, Jessica. Thank you for the introduction and this overview. So I will now use the next sort of 10 minutes to tell you a little bit more about the application process. I know we have some very lucky offer holders on the call already, so you can sort of switch off for the next 5-10 minutes, or go and make yourself a cup of tea, because this won't be relevant to you. But I try to get through this because it's important for people who are still considering applying. And then hopefully we will have lots of time for our alumni and students panel as well. And this is obviously the most important part of this session. And please feel free to type your questions in the Q&A box provided. We will try to answer all of them. I have a couple of colleagues with me on this call as well, and they are monitoring the Q&A box. So they will be able to help you with your questions, and I can answer some of them verbally as well. So how do you apply? This is quite an experienced program. It's an executive master's degree. So you need at least 7 years of relevant work experience. And in this current cohort, average number of years of work experience is actually around 17. So we do see a range. Obviously, we see people with 9, 10 years of experience. We see people with 25 plus years of work experience. But that 7 is the minimum requirement. We do also require from you to have an upper second class or equivalent undergraduate degree. However, we do also accept candidates, that's happened in the past, who maybe did never do an undergraduate degree, sort of went a different route, professional route into their career. And we can talk to you on a case-by-case basis. If you've got extensive work experience, that will be sufficient for the application. And then if English is not your first language, then we will need some sort of English language certificate, and I can talk to you about the English language requirements a little bit later. There is no GMAT and no GRE requirement for this program. You apply online, and these are the documents you will need to apply online. So you will need a CV, academic transcripts for all the degrees that you completed, 2 references, or rather contact details of 2 referees that you can input in your application, at least 1 professional and 1 academic, or 2 professional referees, and the system will send them an automatic email with a request to complete a reference. And then the most important part of the application, you will also have to complete 3 essays, and I will talk about those essays a little bit later as well. I've noticed we've got a question. Someone is asking, I already have a master's in engineering. Is it worth obtaining an MSc? Well, I think it depends on your personal circumstances in this case. But obviously, this is a different program to an engineering degree. The focus here is more on leadership and strategy, like Jessica said. So it might be worth sort of booking an individual call to discuss your situation in more detail. Okay. And this is about the English language proficiency. So if English is not your first language, you can either take a test, so like IELTS or TOEFL, or most likely apply for an English language waiver. This is what most of our students really do. So you can do this on 2 grounds. One is an academic waiver. So if you completed a full-time degree course in the last couple of years, you can apply for an academic language waiver. And again, more often we see that people apply for a language waiver based on professional grounds. You most likely work for international companies, big organizations. You probably use English on a daily basis, so you can ask for a waiver based on that. You self-evidence for that, so there's no need for a letter from a company. You just have to upload a statement, self-written statement, in your application, just to confirm how long you have been using English at work for, in what capacity, whether that's writing reports, talking, meetings, and so on. And we usually grant you a waiver based on that. And those essays, so very, very important 3 essays. As you can see, the main one is 2,000 words. And it's a bit of a case study. So we ask you to describe 2 examples of major programs that you find interesting. So they can be programs that you have worked on. They don't have to be. I've seen different essays with different examples. It depends what you find easier to do, really, or more interesting to do. Obviously, describing the programs you have worked on might be easy in terms of getting the information that you have easy access to. But it's completely up to you. And then 2 shorter essays, 500 words, what qualities are essential for a project manager and what unique contributions you would make to the cohort. That essay is more about yourself. And some top tips for success. I know some of them feel self-explanatory, but I just put them there on the slide just to remind people, because we've seen it all with those essays. So please do read questions carefully. Make sure you are answering the questions that we are asking you. Try to use the word count, the words given to you Obviously, you don't have to aim exactly for 2,000 words, but try not to submit something that is sort of very short and quality is not good. Avoid repetition, check spelling, check grammar. That's all very important. And the most important thing is referencing. So referencing any external sources of information that you're using. If you don't do that, we run your essays through a plagiarism software, and obviously it might red flag it if you didn't reference properly your essays. So please make sure you mention any external sources of information if you are using any. And now I just wanted to quickly talk about funding. So most of our students are actually self-funded. So they use either savings or loans, or they apply for external funding, external scholarships. Different loan companies provide different rates, and you absolutely have to reach out to them directly, contact them directly, speak to them. We work with a number of different loan companies. Just to give you some examples, we work with US Private Loans, Future Finance, Lendwise, Spark Finance, but their availability often depends on your nationality, your country of residence, so please do contact them directly. There is also a number of external scholarships available in different countries. I've seen that too, so government scholarships or sort of countrywide scholarships, so it's worth exploring these as well in your countries. They often have very sort of early application deadlines, so it's important to be quite quick. Yeah. Let me just go to the next slide. And company funding. So some of our students apply for company funding and they are company funded. And I think if you are seeking, I think it's always a good start to ask your company, because worst case scenario, they will say no, but it's always worth exploring this possibility. If you are seeking support from your organization, I think it's important that you build a business case and you demonstrate, obviously, the return on investment for your employer as well. So here I would encourage you to research the program carefully, research the content of the modules. There's a lot of information on the website, and try to tie them to your role and your organization's current situation, or maybe the projects that you run. And don't forget about the dissertation. So your dissertation will focus on applying your learnings to your own organization. So it can be used as, to address a key challenge, upcoming project or upcoming initiative in your organization. And of course, when you're building that business case, don't forget about the diversity and the quality of the cohort. So you will be studying with 60 other very experienced professionals. So you will be able to gain ideas and inspiration and innovation from different organizations and different people as well. And also understanding their challenges might help you with your own challenges, and you will be able to discuss that a lot in the classroom, in the lecture theatre, and sort of find new solutions to your problems too. And finally, scholarships. So we have a limited number of scholarships available at Saïd Business School. We already had our first scholarship deadline in January. The second and final scholarship deadline is in March, so that's the 25th of March. And we have a couple of scholarships left. So if you would like to apply for the Women's Scholarship, there is or the Director's Award, you need to submit a separate essay with your application. So that's another essay, 500 words, explaining why you think you should be awarded this scholarship. Everyone is automatically considered for the Rulli Award, which is also 50% of the program fees. But the Rulli Award is very much focused on your academic credentials and your academic excellence. So just something to keep in mind here. And now, hopefully we've got a couple of minutes before we move on to the panel to answer any questions you might have. Let me just see questions in the Q&A chat. Ruby is asking, do scholarships cap the age? No, absolutely not. Age is not a relevant factor. They mainly merit-based. So Director's Award and Women's Scholarship are very much merit-based, and obviously Rulli Award focuses on your academic credentials. Let me see. So I've got some questions from Tamer here as well. Is there any geographical information for the 2024 cohort? Yes, it won't be final information, Tamer, because obviously we are still recruiting for the 2024 cohort. We somewhere in the middle of the recruitment cycle. So if you email me directly, and I know we've emailed before and we've spoken before, I can share some information with you, but it won't be set in stone because obviously we are still accepting applications and expecting a lot of applications. What companies are the prospective and accepted candidates for cohort 2024 working for? Again, I can pull that data for you, maybe share that via email. Yes, they come from very diverse, so local, international businesses, absolutely NGOs, governments. We've got PwC, we've got KPMG, we've got, in the past we had Network Rail, so big sort of construction companies as well, banks, so financial sector, but happy to share more information via email. I don't remember, to be honest, off the top of my head. We've had so many applications and so many offer holders already, but I'm very happy to share that. I think this current cohort will be probably similar to this upcoming cohort will be very similar to the current cohort. So if you want to look at some stats on our website for the current cohort, that will give you a good idea of what to expect. Okay. Hedge is asking if an essay is required for the Director's Award. Yes, 500-word essay in your application, an additional one. And Ruby is asking, when is the deadline for the application for the Director's Award? It's the 25th of March, Ruby. Okay. I think that's my colleagues are answering some other questions, but I think most of them are answered. And I will keep an eye on the Q&A box throughout the session, and my colleagues will as well. But I think we can now move on to the most interesting part of the session, which is our student panel, alumni and student panel. So please feel free to type questions in the Q&A box for our panelists too. And before I move on to your questions, I just wanted to say huge thank you to Sarah, Sumaya, and Sadia for agreeing to help me with this event today. I know they are all very busy. I know Sarah has just graduated from the program. Sumaya and Sadia are coming for the last module next week. So I know they are incredibly busy, but thank you so much to all of you for joining us. And Sarah, I was wondering, as you are the first person on my slide, I was wondering if I could ask you to introduce yourself and tell us maybe briefly why you decided to study this program, because you have officially graduated now.
That's right. Thank you, Magda, and thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure to be here. As you just mentioned, I graduated on Saturday. It was really an excellent event. I think I'm still a bit high from the weekend. It is quite nice. So my background, it also goes to one of the questions which the candidates have put. So I've done more or less engineering all my life. I have a bachelor, master's, and a PhD in engineering, and I then worked in industry for 17 years. But when you work in industry, so I worked in major aerospace companies like Airbus, Rolls-Royce, DLR Space Agency, and now more recently I have joined the European Union Space Program Agency, where we are mainly responsible for satellite navigation and satellite communication programs. They are large programs of over several billion euros. And in my job, I am head of engineering. I was also head of engineering in my previous jobs. And actually, there's a reason why I joined the program is that I did too much engineering. And when you work in industry, you're always leading programs. You're always tasked to design your organization. You have to manage risk. You have to manage so many different things. And these are the skills you haven't necessarily learned in your engineering degree. And the greatest advantage was after several years in industry to go back and learn, and the topics you learn are absolutely relevant. It doesn't matter if you're looking at leading large programs or you're in another senior leadership roles, you are always touching different topics which are really relevant to your day-to-day in industry. I'm speaking for myself. And so I really enjoyed it. And every time we had a module, there was always really good discussion, really interesting visiting professors, interesting group work. And then in the end, we would have to write an assignment by applying what we learned in the week back to our projects, which we led before. And I had so much time to reflect back on what I did right, what I did wrong, because let's say, take an example of stakeholder engagement and stakeholder management, a topic we learned. It's something I completely really underestimated in my job and never paid enough attention. And something, once you learn it, you can't unlearn it. So now I'm very much aware that I need to pay more attention to that. And it really helped me also to find my next job, I have to say, because I had done all this reflective learning and looked at so many examples. So I had all these examples ready. Whenever I went on an interview and they asked me questions, I had all the examples ready to give them because I had spent the last 2 years analyzing what I've done. So that was a very positive point as well. Yeah, so I really enjoyed the course. The reflective learning was really powerful. And we really made some great friendships, because in the cohort you have a really diverse people from diverse industries. They also share in their knowledge, so you really have to actively engage with the whole course and the topics, and you share a lot, you learn a lot from each other, and you make really great friendships. So apart from all the nice dinners and events we've organized together, actually I even have been on girls' trips with my girlfriends, which I have made from MMPM, and it's really this kind of friendships I've made for life, which is really something I really cherish. So yeah, so I'm really happy to answer any of your questions you may have, or doubts, or there's no question which is a stupid question. Just I'm happy to share from my side. So feel free to ask anything.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sarah. And congratulations again on graduating last Saturday. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Sumaya, you were nodding there along what Sarah was saying. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself and your sort of reflections on this program?
Thank you, Magda. Again, thank you for having this. I feel it's such an honor for me to be here today. Because I remember when I was actually applying and I don't think there was some other stuff. There was, I must have missed it. So I'm really glad this is happening today. So I'm Sumaya. So I had a startup since I was 18, and I've been working with that for the last 16, 17 years or so. And that company's grown from being a very small organization to a really well-known education institute in its space. But this came about because I felt at a time when I was working there that I had a lot of experience and I knew how to do a lot of things, or I thought so at the time, of course. But I didn't have any professional qualification or any learning behind it, because all of my professional education was in the arts. Like I did history as my undergrad, and I had a different master's in a completely different subject. So I felt it was the time that I do something about that, basically. And actually, as you would normally do, I don't know, I went and looked at MBA programs, because when you think of business school, you think of MBAs. I don't think of that anymore, of course. Then I came across this by chance, and actually it just was a much better fit, because for the MBA stuff, I felt like I already had covered that in my experience. But really, what I was hoping this would offer me would be something that I needed at the time, a little bit more challenging, something that would help me think a little bit differently, maybe. And I think obviously I'm near the end of the program now, almost getting there. But I find the program has done that, that's for sure, but it's done beyond that. And it's not just about my professional career. I find me as a person now, I think differently. I'm able to think a little bit more holistically at different things, look at the bigger picture, even if it's in a personal capacity, not necessarily for work. Thing. So I have changed. So even for my career things, so now I'm going into consultancy. I'm doing freelance consultancy at the moment. And I do definitely feel that I would not have been able to do that if it wasn't for this program. And I don't know if another program would have enabled me to do that in the same way. So I really enjoyed it. I'm really, and like Dr. Sarah said, I'm also happy to answer any questions that anyone has about the application process or just experience of being at Oxford. Yeah, really happy to be here as well. So
thank you. Thanks so much, Sumaya. That's interesting what you said about the MBA, because I often speak to the candidates who initially thought about doing an MBA, but they were looking for something more specialized. Yeah. They come my way for MMPM, so that's very, very interesting. And last but not least, of course, Sadia. Sadia, could you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit more about the program? I don't know if Sadia is still with us or she might be frozen.
She's muted, no?
Sadia, you muted, so I don't know if you...
Hey everyone.
Oh.
My name is Sadia. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now, yes.
Yeah. Hi everyone. My name is Sadia. Thank you once more, and thank you for having me on this panel. I am a banker, but a project manager. I work with the Central Bank of Nigeria, and I have years of experience, about 13 years of experience. I was looking for a program to do my master's. Initially, I had project management in mind, and when I went online to search, I realized there wasn't anything like project management in Oxford, but program management popped up. And in my head, I was like, oh, what's it about? I went through the requirement, the details, and what the program was about. And I realized it was something I wanted to venture into. However, I didn't really understand it initially because when I started, of course, Guy and the previous team helped me through the whole application process. The application team so far, they were so supportive because at some point I even had challenges with my organization, some documents and all of that, but they were super supportive. And that really helped me in my application process. While I applied, of course, I got shortlisted. I was excited. The program started. I realized we had 8 modules. I had to be in Oxford every 6 weeks. Yeah, like 2 months here, about 6 to 8 weeks. Yeah, it's been interesting. The first module I struggled because my expectations were different. My expectations on the program was, I actually thought it was more of it was going to be like you just get the lectures, you have these lecturers that come in, they give you information you need, not necessarily, oh, this is the key to solving your project's challenges and the problems you experience on your programs. But I just didn't expect it to be so interactive. But in all honesty, it's been super interactive, and I can say I've learned so much from my fellow cohorts. It's not just about, oh, okay, this person has the vast knowledge of everything. It's a combination of the diversity, we leverage on each other's experience, our knowledge, the relationships. Sometimes when I have challenges, I don't necessarily have to approach my colleagues at work. I even speak to my cohorts, and they've been super helpful. And some of the things I really enjoy, dinners, especially the lunch, when we go out for lunch, they are just avenues. You get to sit with different people, talk about problems or issues you're going through on your project or your programs. You get to know what people's lives are about, even personal stuff. We have these discussions at lunch. Then when you have issues, there are lots of people that are approachable. Even Alex has been super helpful to as well. White as well. There are people I just realized that the lecturers also approachable. When you meet them and have one-on-one discussions with them, they give you that listening ears. They are willing to listen to you, regardless of the challenges you're going through. They're there to help. They support you. And so far, I've really learned a lot, even when it comes to implementing it on my job, especially systems thinking and risk management. It's been so helpful. These are things I never really thought about, but over the few months or a year plus, it's been so helpful even on the job. Yeah. So far that's it. Feel free to ask me any other questions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sadia. And I'm so glad you talked about, how interactive the program is, how you have to engage in discussions and debates, because that's slightly different or very different to what some people might have experienced in the undergraduate degrees, for example. We've got a couple of questions here. So Ludmila, and I think Ludmila is an offer holder now. Ludmila is asking, what was the most difficult part of the course? And what advice you would give to the future students? So this is a question to any of you, whoever would like to answer.
Okay, me, I would just say it was designing. That was the first module for me. That was quite difficult because I didn't actually go through all the readings, in all honesty, and that was a struggle. So I advise you, before you start a module, make sure you complete your readings so you can actually contribute and bring in rich contributions. You can reflect, you can actually contribute to class discussions and even interactions. You can ask the necessary questions. Because if you don't do that, at the end of the day, you go into class and you're like a fish out of water. I don't know, but for me, it was a struggle. My first module, I didn't complete my readings. It was a struggle for me. Then after the assignment, I didn't do so well in the first module, in all honesty. But after that, I learned from my mistakes. Yeah.
That's very good advice. Very practical advice. Thank you, Sadia. Sumaya, I think you unmuted yourself there.
I think for me, I think the program design, the way it's designed. So obviously we have a dip in and out. You're in Oxford, you have assignments, and then you're away for a bit. I think sometimes this is a personal thing for me, is when you've finished your assignment, that gap, you're not working on your university academic studies. To get back into it again can be a little bit difficult, but that might just be a personal thing. So if somehow we can, I'll try to be more consistent, do less over the weeks, but just because of my time with my workload, I end up doing a lot the week before or deadline time. And then the weeks that are quieter is a little bit harder to sort of keep going the momentum. But on that note, we have a group chat, and it's the most active group chat I've ever been on or will ever be on. And we've done some statistics, and it seems, and our program hasn't ended, but we've chatted continuously for 550 days, and we've sent 12,724 messages. I don't know if it's possible. I can't see. So we have a lot of statistics, Magda. You might be interested in this.
Yeah, definitely, please. Yeah.
So amidst the challenges, the support is there, like Sadia mentioned, and that's one of the things I feel like you won't find on other program. The support is incredible because it's not just support; it's genuine support. There is a genuine feeling in the room of concern and wanting good for others. So if there is an issue, you just have to ask, and more than one person will come reach out to you and offer that help, and that comes from a very sincere place. And that level of support and that sort of support is very hard to find. And this group, our cohort definitely has it, but I know the whole MMPM is just an incredible group to be part of.
Amazing. Thank you, Sumaya. Thank you so much. Yes, please send me an email with all those stats. That's very interesting to see. And your poor phone, and I can only imagine how many notifications you keep getting.
Maybe if I can just add, I think it's worth to note that all of us are in a different private situation. So you said the cohort medium age is 41, some younger, some older. I personally have 2 small children, so balancing my family life, my full-time job, and the studies was not easy, and that was the challenging part of the balancing. So you need to prioritize, and all of a sudden you have a crisis at home or at work, and you still need to work on your assignment. So it should not be underestimated, but I've also learned that you learn to stretch yourself, and then you're proud in the end when you're over the line. And as Sumaya said, there was always the support from the group. So whenever somebody we were up against the deadline and we were missing this or that, everybody was jumping in to say how they can support. So that was, and always egging you on and pushing that, okay, we will do it. And so we knew that somehow there was a great spirit with the group, and it was, everybody wanted that we come through together, and we made it in the end. So, but yeah, it's a challenge, and I would say maybe I did underestimate it a little bit before I started, and just the balancing of the 3 different parts. But at the same time, I'm glad I did it. It's good that I underestimated. It's good that I went into it, and then because in the end you stretch yourself and you do it. So it's that was.
I think that's the point of the program as well. It stretches you. I think you all mentioned that you were a bit surprised at the beginning, but you stretched yourself. You did it. You completed the program, and you had a positive experience. Regine, I'm sorry, I know you've had your hand up for a while, and you've typed the questions now. I don't know if you would like to ask your question verbally, or if you just you want to type your question. No. Regine, I can see that Regine has a question about scholarship, so maybe one of my colleagues can answer this question rather than the panel. So we talked about the most challenging aspect of the program. I just wanted to ask you about the most enjoyable part of the program. Let's sort of talk about, you know, pleasant and nice things as well. So could you, maybe I start with Sarah actually. Sarah, could you tell me about the sort of most enjoyable part of the program or your Oxford experience, and maybe what part of the program surprised you?
Okay. So there's a lot of enjoyable moments, to be honest. I think I enjoyed all of it. Of course, the assignment bit was always a bit stressful. You had to deliver something, but being in the classroom, discussing different topics which are really applicable to your job, and you have many times I had this aha moment where you cracked something that you've always bothered you, and then you figured it something out. I think these aha moments were really powerful, and it's great when you finally figure things out. Was something you had a problem at work, and just the sharing with the cohort. I mean, we do a lot of once you are for a week in Oxford, you do a lot together. I mean, you put a nice social program around our curriculum as well, around the agenda. There's also a social part of it, which has been really enriching as well. And Oxford is just an amazing place. So it's something that we always look forward to every time. And we are also very sad that it's over.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sarah. Sadia, what about you? The most enjoyable part of the program or the experience?
So far for me, it's been I've enjoyed the diversity, people from all over the world, you know, different cultures, you know, experiences. I'm gonna miss those moments when we sit and we talk about different things in terms of challenges on the jobs, also friendships, in as much as we plan activities. I know it's not going to be like when we're still in Oxford. We'll really have to sit and plan activities or how we meet. I know there are definitely some cohorts I'm not going to see again. Maybe just emails on the group, hello, hi, and you know, when there are festive periods and stuff like that. I'm really going to miss that. I'm going to miss the dinners, especially because we get to bond a lot. Yeah, and so far I'm going to miss the program as a whole. Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been an amazing journey so far. I'm really going to miss my time in Oxford when I graduate. Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sadia. You still got one more module to go next week. So, Sumaya, what about you?
Yeah, I think of course the essays, no. Maybe receiving some of the marks, but not so much. But I think really there was one time, I think it was last module, the module before, I can't remember, we had the union debate. So
yeah.
So we actually went and we had to do a practice debate. So we had for motion, the against motion, and we were in groups, and then we had to actually do the debate in the Oxford Union itself. So I think that brought a different side to everyone. You think you know someone, and then you have to let them debate, and then you find out who they really are. So that was really pleasant. I think that was a really fun morning that we had on the from the teaching perspective. And then the other thing once we did was the punting. Again, you think a group of people who are so academically well and they're so professional to their careers can manage a boating trip.
It's a different set of skills you need, I think.
It's a different set of skills to be able to do punting in Oxford. But obviously, if you're in Oxford, you have to do one punting trip. There's those moments, those chances to be together and to spend that quality time that you know, and especially like Dr. Sarah mentioned with the family and things. This is the one chance. This program allows you to be completely away in a way. And sometimes we need that. And I know that's been really helpful for me. So I have 3 children that I have to leave behind for the program. And as difficult it is for them, not for me. For me it's easy. But you know, you need that but to be in that space where you can dedicate your thinking about your program or your learning yourself and focus on your investing in your education, I think that is a very rare opportunity that you will get without any sort of so what's the word, just distractions, so you can just focus on it. And I think that's something that I will appreciate more once the program is ended, because really we don't get much time to reflect on our leadership styles, on our methods of working, approaching, and the program enables you to do that thinking and gives you the space to do it in. And Oxford is Oxford, of course. I'm biased, so I'm from Oxford, so of course Oxford is Oxford. But you know, so those things have been really, really pleasant, and of course the lectures and those things are good. We do. I don't know if the setup is the same, but we get a lot of guest lectures coming in, and I'm sure that'll continue. That is a really good part of the program in the sense that, of course, you have the lecturers, the professors who are based at Oxford, but the guest lecturers that come in, it just brings it does bring a different perspective. You know, the university has tried to get people who are experts in the field to come in, the leaders of their industry to come and talk to you. So those key moments are definitely they will stand out, and we feel the benefit of it because we get to hear their perspective and listen to their stories.
Thank you. Thanks so much.
Oh, I forgot. Sorry, the Christmas dinner. Sorry, there's so much. The Christmas dinner. Yeah, because you get crackers and you get to wear a Christmas hat.
Very important to mention.
Very important.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I wanted to ask you, you all talked about the practical applications of the program, and I know that's important to you as well. So I wanted to ask you if you could maybe give an example each of how maybe you use the knowledge and skills learned in the program in your organization or in your role, and anything that you learned that you could actually apply in practice the next week. Anyone?
I can start. So for me, it was, as I said, because it's typically, again, one candidate was asking, I've got engineering degrees, is the right one? So you learn also about systems thinking, and system thinking is about looking at the problem from the very high view, system of system, and then zooming in and out of this issue. So, and when you're optimizing something, you should focus on optimizing the whole and not only the parts. And very often what we do is we optimize the parts, and that's what I now always take a step back. So zoom out. It's funny enough because I work with satellites, so I can zoom in and out like a navigation satellite, and you can look at the problem from other angles. And when you're changing something, how does it affect the rest of the system? So that's the one practical examples, which it changes your thinking about how you tackle a problem, I should say. Another thing is about risk management, because we focus too far on risk management, not enough on opportunity management. So again, every time, and just recently we had a major crisis at work. It was a crisis, but it was also in the end an opportunity. So it led to some good options. So always to have also a look every time you're assessing risk and mitigation options. What other, also just likewise looking at opportunities. I had one more thing I wanted to mention. I mean, there's just so many different things. You have all this learning in the background that you're like always you're looking at things with another lens now. I find in my day-to-day work from all the learnings that I have taken, whether it's with leadership styles, more or less from every module I've taken something away, which then when I'm in my day-to-day work, I have this extra filters which now actually apply to my day work. So for me, I apply it a lot and every day, I would say.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Sarah. Sumaya and Sadia, anything you would like to add?
Yeah, I think you just grow with each module. And I personally, for me, this has been a very personal growth as well. So I feel like each module you see something happen. You can't really quite pinpoint it sometimes, but you know something has changed. And someone said this to me, that what happens is, I think it was their experience, or maybe someone said to them, not exactly sure, but each module, you go back having learned so much new content and maybe different ways of doing things. And maybe you have those aha moments that Dr. Sarah was talking about, but you go back to a workforce that have stayed where they are. It's only been a week away, but you feel like you've come back with something different. And every module you're doing that, really, by the end of the program, you're a different person to your team who may still be the same team. And that growth that happens every few months, it's really hard to describe, but it's also really hard to pinpoint exactly where it is. For me, systems thinking was also the module that kind of changed my perspective on things, and I've started to look at things differently now. But also I've become very humble as a person. There was a point in my life I thought I knew everything because I was running my own business. I was calling the shots. I was telling people what to do, and then this program broke me, basically. But it's a learning thing, and it's really good when you do get on the other side and you can see it changing you for the better.
changing your thinking as well. A lot of people say that they sort of grow and change, and it changes their way of thinking as well.
And it's not just academic, it's the people in the room. So of course you have your academic side of things, and those things are, you know, that's all there. But actually the caliber in the room is unmatchable. It's just so incredible for you to be in that space that you really can't get that anywhere else, because the experience in the room is just so rich, so rich. And somebody would have experienced something similar to you, but would have sold it a different way. And that's okay. Because there's just different ways of doing the same thing. So those sort of things, moments are really, I think, really, really key.
Amazing. Thank you. Thanks so much. I think I calculated the total experience of this current cohort. So not exactly your cohort, but it was 1,000 years in total.
Wow.
in a room of 60. So you're right. We've got a question here. I don't know if you've got an experience of this. I would like to know if you have an opportunity to interact with professors from other Oxford colleges or faculties during your 5-day stay in Oxford.
So we have a dinner once, a university organized dinner. So that, and often at the dinner you'll have other guest speakers, and the dinner is held at a different college every term, every module. Sorry, so you get to experience the other colleges in that way. There's also the Oxford Union, and the only tricky thing is though the module times and the terms are not in sync with the Oxford University term times, and the Oxford Union operates with the university term times, their term. So, but there might be a module or two that clashes, and then that week you can hop in and out of their events, what's going on. Of course, if you are more local, you are in the UK, you can come to those events out of it. But really, the program is so busy itself, you're probably not going to have much time. But if it does clash with the time with the thing, there's always a lot going on. So there are opportunities. But again, that might be the decision. And some people do this. They'll travel 2-3 days before and then leave it 2-3 days after, just so that they can try to maximize benefit of being in and around Oxford, go to other places or just do other things in Oxford. But again, that's everyone's circumstances different. If you can afford that sort of time, then that's great. If not, within the week, it's not so easy.
Difficult to,
It's
busy.
But it's definitely doable, and we do, and like I said, we are very social around that week, so we'll do dinners outside of the university dinners on the other days, but it's not always going to be possible, because if we come out term time, which has happened, then it's quite quiet period.
I would say, I don't know if you agree, that there's so many different initiatives and things happening at Oxford, but the expectation is that you will be proactive and you will reach out to all these different people. It's not like, you get a list of contacts, for example, and it's done for you. There's an expectation that you will be very proactive as well. Would you agree with that? Is that how it works?
Yeah, I think that's my motto in life. If you want something done, just do it. So if you want something, ask it. If it's not already existing, then create it.
Thank you. Thanks so much. I'm just conscious of the time. It flew by, just a couple of minutes left. So I just wanted to ask one last question. If someone decides to apply after today, what advice would you give them? And shall I start with Sadia for a change?
Sorry, I didn't get the question.
Sorry, if someone decides to apply after today, what advice would you give them before they apply, before they start the program? What advice would you share with someone?
In my own opinion, I will tell the person, go ahead, apply. It's worth it, because the experience has been amazing. And what you learn, you can't unlearn, really. So there's no harm in trying, but you need to give it your best. And you should have in mind that you must create time to get the best out of this program.
That's very good advice. Yeah. Create time. Thank you. Thank you, Sadia. Sarah, anything you would like to share?
I would just like to echo that. Go for it. You won't regret it. You will enjoy it very much. And make sure that whether it's your employer or your family, that you negotiate this time, that you actually then dedicate the time, and that you feel more relaxed when you're in the course. But either way, you will find a way to make it happen. That's what I found. So, yeah, go for it, and you will enjoy it. That's all I can say.
Thank you. Thanks so much, Sarah. And Smaya?
No, same. Apply. Once you apply, hopefully you're in, and then you have a choice to make whether to accept or not. But if you don't apply, you don't have a choice to make. So just apply.
I like that.
Yeah.
That's very, very
Yeah.
good advice. Yeah, you will have
And
a
you have
choice.
support to apply. So in the process of applications, of course, there's support available. So make use of that support available. I know I did. Magda's happy because it was somebody else at that time who I trusted. But you know, the Oxford teams there to answer any questions, and we're all available to answer any other questions or help in any way. So
Of course, you sort of started talking about my next slide, Sumaya. So thank you so much. Just wanted to say thank you to all of you. Sumaya, Sadia, Sarah, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for sharing your experiences. You've been wonderful. Sadia and Sumaya, I look forward to meeting you next week, Tuesday. Is it next week? Next week it is, isn't it? Tuesday, Wednesday. And Sarah, congratulations again, and hopefully we see you in Oxford at some point.
Yeah, and good luck to Sumaya and Sadia for the
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Just a very quick note from me. A couple of people asked in the chat about the application deadlines. So like I said, the next application deadline and the final scholarship deadline is the 25th of March. And then we've got 3rd of June and 15th of July. We might close earlier if we fill up. We only have 60 places, so an early application is encouraged. I was just wondering, Jessica, do you want to add anything before we finish?
Just good luck to anybody who hasn't applied yet, and we look forward to reading them.
Thank you so much for joining us today, everyone. Thank you so much to the panel. Thank you so much to Jessica as well, and Joe and Daniela who are monitoring the chat. And good luck with your applications, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Good luck.
Thank you. Bye-bye.